Dear students, this is the fourth lecture in supply chain management. First, let us go back to the questions what we have discussed in the last lecture. The first question is logistics and supply chain management are same. Say yes or no. So as you know very well, the answer is no, because logistics and supply chain management are different in terms of that logistics is part of the supply chain management. Supply chain management deals with flow of dash, dash, and dash. So what is the answer? Flow of products, information, and funds. Give the formula for supply chain surplus. Supply chain surplus is equal to customer value minus supply chain cost. Now let us move on to this lecture. So this lecture talks about decision phases in a supply chain. So the first phase is supply chain strategy or decision. We see what is the meaning of strategy. Strategy means a plan of action to achieve in a long term. During this phase, a company decides how to structure the supply chain over the next several years, maybe for more than 3 years or 5 years. So it decides what the chain's configuration will be, how resources will be allocated, and what processes each stage will perform. So for the span of 3 years or 5 years, how the supply chain is to be configured. To configure in such a way, what all the resources are required and how it is to be allocated, and what is the nature of processes to be done in each stage. So when we talk about supply chain strategy, the decisions to be made by the companies. So we can see one by one. So the first decision is whether to outsource or perform a supply chain function in-house. So what do you mean by outsource and in-house? So when you say outsource, the company gives the supply chain job to the third party. When you say supply chain function in-house, the company itself takes care of the supply chain function. So what we have to decide now, whether to outsource or to be done in-house. So how do you decide? The factors are, one is cost, the other one is quality. So the company has to judge the quality of third party. If the quality is okay or satisfied, then we should see what is the cost of outsourcing. If the cost of outsourcing is lesser than if we do it on our own, that is company takes care of the supply chain function itself, then we can go for outsourcing the supply chain function to the third party. Otherwise, the company may take care of supply chain function itself to save the cost. The next decision is the location and capacities of production and warehousing facilities. When we talk about production, all the products need not be manufactured in the same place. The reason is, one thing is demand factor. So if the demand for a particular product is very high and the availability of raw materials and what is the demand in different locations. So based on that, the product may be produced in different places, different locations. And warehousing also, again, based on the demand, we have to keep the products in stock in different parts of the country or parts of the world. So when you buy the product package itself, on the pack itself we can see that some identification to indicate that where it was manufactured. So this is available in the product pack itself, so that we can identify where it was manufactured. Third one, the products to be manufactured are stored at various locations. Then we should decide what products to be manufactured in particular location and what products to be stored at various locations. So again, it is based on the demand. So when you forecast the demand, accordingly you can decide what products to be manufactured in different locations and where it is to be stored. The next question is the modes of transportation to be made available along different shipping legs. So what are the different modes of transportation? You are going to use it to move the product from the point of origin to point of service. So the different kinds of transportations available. We can use trucks or train or flights or ships or whatever it is. The last one is the type of information to be utilized. What type of information you are going to use it for a particular supply chain management system and how it is going to help in improving the process in total. The next phase is supply chain planning. So for decision made during this phase, the time frame considered is a quarter to a year. So now we are talking about the lesser period than the previous phase, that is quarter to a year. So therefore, the supply chain configuration determined in the strategic phase is fixed. So in this case, the supply chain configuration is already decided because we cannot make a bigger change in a year or in a month. This configuration establishes constraints within which planning must be done. As we talk about the plan of action for a year, there may be some constraints, maybe in terms of money or in terms of infrastructure facilities. For example, we want to have a new warehouse in a particular place. It may not be completed within a year. Or if you want to recruit people, again, it may take time to recruit the people in high numbers. So there may be some constraints. The goal of planning is to maximize the supply chain surplus that can be generated over the planning horizon given the constraints established during the strategic or design phase. So in this phase, our ultimate aim is to maximize the supply chain surplus. So we already discussed what we mean by supply chain surplus. So because based on that only we can decide the supply chain profitability. So our aim is to maximize the supply chain surplus within this particular 1 year or 6 months or 3 months in spite of the constraints faced by the company. So companies start the planning phase with a forecast for the coming year. So you forecast for a particular year or particular month or 6 months based on the demand and other factors such as cost and prices in different markets. So we have to plan accordingly because the demand has to be analyzed and what is the cost and prices in different markets. So planning includes making decisions regarding which market should be supplied from which locations. So you have to identify the locations from which the particular markets are to be supplied. And subcontracting of manufacturing. As the time is going to be 1 year, suppose if you find a spike in demand means sudden peak in demand, we cannot improve the manufacturing facilities immediately. So what you can do, you can subcontract the manufacturing for a certain period. If the demand is persistent, then we can go for another manufacturing plant also. Then the inventory policies to be followed. So what is the level of stock you are going to maintain in each product, when you have to reorder, that is they call it as reorder quantity, when you have to keep ordering the products again and again. So all these things comes under inventory policies. The timing and size of marketing and price promotions. You may have to go for price promotions, particularly in a year based on the seasonal demand. For example, in festival seasons, you can go for a price promotions. If you buy one product, the other product will be free, something like that. For example, in Diwali, New Year, Pongal, like that, the companies will announce price promotion schemes, or they will reduce the prices, or they will give some discounts. Supply chain operation, that is the third phase. Here the time horizon here is weekly or daily. So during this phase, companies make decisions regarding individual customer orders. So here the time span is only weekly or daily. So we will concentrate only on the customer orders. So at the operational level, supply chain configuration is considered fixed and planning policies are already defined. So as the time is very short, that is one day or week or like that, supply chain configuration is already decided. Planning policies are also already available. So accordingly, we have to service the consumer. The goal of supply chain operation is to handle incoming customer orders in the best possible manner. That is what our aim. So how I can service the customer orders in a best possible manner. The supply chain operation, what is to be done here? Firms allocate inventory or production at individual orders. So based on the individual orders, you have to allocate inventory or production. If it is available already in stock, we can service the customer immediately. If it is not available, we have to produce it. Set a date that an order is to be filled. So based on the situation, if it is already available, the deadline will be very soon, or if it is to be produced, based on that we have to fix a deadline. Before that, the order is to be satisfied. Generate pick list at a warehouse. So if it is available in warehouse, how we are going to take it from different warehouses. Allocate an order to a particular shipping mode and shipment. So how we are going to transport the products to different places, accordingly we have to allocate the order. Set delivery schedules of trucks. So for trucks, we have to plan this delivery schedules. That is when it has to leave the company or manufacturing place or warehouse, or when it has to deliver the product at a particular places. And finally, place replenishment orders. So that is filling the stock. So when you have to fill the rack in different uh, department stores or shops or whatever it is. Because operational decisions are being made in the short term, mostly in days, hours, minutes, there is less uncertainty about demand information. So demand is already fixed. So you don't have any uncertainty here. So given the constraints established by the configuration and planning policies, the goal during the operation phase is to exploit the reduction of uncertainty and optimize performance. So there is no uncertainty. So our aim is to optimize the performance. So what is the conclusion? The design, planning and operation of a supply chain have a strong impact on overall profitability and success. So if a firm or company or a manufacturing organization is to be successful in supply chain management, so the three phases we have to concentrate, that is supply chain design, supply chain planning and supply chain operations.
Students answer these objective type questions by typing the question number and the correct option. For example, if you feel that option B is correct for 1, you say type 1B.